So good afternoon and welcome everyone to our Engineering Alumni Career Panel. My name is Jeremy Hyman. Good afternoon. My name is Jeremy Hyman. I am the Science and Technology Success Specialist at NCC's Center for Career Development. And I'd like to introduce a few key people this afternoon before launching into our panel with our esteemed guests, our alumni panelists. First, I'm joined by Evan Simmons, who will be helping to moderate our chat as well as the question and answer portion of our session. Evan is a peer mentor and a graduating second-year engineering student and student leader at NCC from the Monroe campus, who will be transferring to pursue his bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering and who has helped with spreading the word of today's event. Evan, would you like to say hello to the crowd here?
Hello. Jeremy said, oh.
Okay, so you'll be hearing from Evan after the first part of our session as we move from our panelist intros and presentations to our Q&A. So we appreciate Evan's presence here today to help with promoting the event as well. And on that note, you can enter questions into the chat at any point. Evan will be moderating that. Will be following along the moderating, and our panelists will answer your questions during the final 15 or 20 minutes or so of today's session after each of them speaks for 4 or 5 minutes. The main part of the show here will be each of our panelists talking for 4 or 5 minutes, which we'll get to just shortly in a moment or so. First, I'd also like to welcome Zachary Cruz from our admissions office in case any of our audience members who are prospective students might have admissions questions moving forward. I'd also like to thank my colleagues and supervisors from our Center for Career Development for coming on. And finally, I'd like to give a hearty welcome to NCC's outstanding inaugural STEM Dean, Dr. Farah Banani. And Farah, would you like to say a few words to the group before our panelists get started?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Heyman. On behalf of NCC, I want to welcome each one of you in this, in you sharing with us your journey. While you have been a student at NCC before my time, I have no doubt just reading your biography and doing my Google search on each one of you, I can attest that the education you have received at NCC did provide you with the foundation. So it is my privilege and honor to be with you and introduce each one of you. And I look forward to hearing more about what you have learned and what you can share with our students. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dean Banani. So at this time, I'd like to introduce our esteemed alumni panelists whose faces you're seeing on the screen, perhaps in more than one place. Each of our panelists will be introducing themselves and speaking for 4 or 5 minutes about their education and career path, highlights, challenges, advice that they have for you, or advice that they wish that they received when they were in your shoes a few years or more than a few years ago, exciting projects that they've worked on, and any other parts of their story or journey that they wish to share. We are extremely proud of each of them and utterly grateful to them for joining us as panelists today. So our order of speakers will be as follows. We'll be kicking things off with Jeffrey Lisk, who graduated in 2015 and now works at Flexicon, followed by Sergio Davila Martinez, who works at More Energy, and then Serena Yombe, who works at the STV Group in Philly, then Corey Trumbauer, who's at Snyder Hoffman, Gabriela Guel, who works at PPL, David Jubor, who, well, you'll hear about kind of his pivots and whatnot, but he trained in chemie but works in data science at Walt Disney in Orlando. And finally, Tony Cuvo, who works at Victaulic and is also a holder of quite a number of patents as well, and also is involved as an instructor here at the college and has been for the past 2 decades. So without further ado, I will put a screen share here, and I will pass it along to Jeff. So Jeff, go ahead.
All right. Can everyone hear me? Okay, good. Hello, thank you, Jeremy. My name is Jeffrey Lisk. I graduated from NCC in 2015 in engineering. I then earned my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering at Wilkes University. And I've worked as a technical applications engineer at Flexicon for 2 years. So I guess if you were put down, your favorite parts about my career path or my field, I would separate into 2 parts: school and then in school and then out of school. My favorite part in school was, learning new things and then applying them to real life applications. Challenges are relating those 2 ideas and then understanding them, not only for the sake of passing an exam or handing in my homework, but the meaning behind the science and the engineering. Out of school, my favorite part is working as a team on projects. Everyone has a role as an employee. It's up to each person to fulfill those tasks. And since every project at where I work is different, it can be a challenge to understand each application. So what I'm left with is the knowledge that I gained from that, and then apply it for future projects or to pass it along to other employees. So one of the most impactful things that I've done in my career for schooling or in my field is for my capstone project, we designed, created, and fabricated a bulletproof vest. This was fully tested at a shooting range under experienced staff. We actually formulated a 5-inch by 5-inch sample, and it was capable of stopping 3 bullets from a .357 Magnum from 15 feet away. Not only did it stop the bullet, but it also reduced the amount of impact or residual damage that the user would take or absorb by more than 76%. I've since placed a patent on that design, and it's still undergoing right now. If I could share any piece of advice for you, any of you considering an engineering path, is to study in groups. Never be afraid to ask questions, definitely, to the professors or the students, and to put in your work. Engineering is definitely a tough course. I mean, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? But it's well worth it in the end. So really try to understand what it is that you're learning, and use all, if any, after school activities such as study groups or open lab times to get help if needed. And I always made it a point for me personally to, in any course that I took, to get in touch with that professor on a first person name basis. I would introduce myself. I would ask questions during or after class. The professors wanted to see you succeed, and I wanted them to know, especially wanted them to know that I was there to learn and flourish, not just to mess around. So it's important to introduce yourself, make sure that you stand out above everyone else. I think so. It helps. And a little bit of a background on myself. I'm a high school dropout in 2002. I had many odds and ends jobs. Worked as a pizza maker for 8 years. I loaded trucks for 4 years. But I wanted more out of life, so I decided to earn my GED when I was 29. The GED program I enrolled in was 8 weeks, and then I finished it in roughly 2. Then I immediately enrolled at NCC that spring of 2013. I graduated from NCC in 2015 in engineering, and then, like I said, transferred to Wilkes University and pursued my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. While I attended NCC during my Calc 2 course, I was asked, well, some of us were asked to become tutors for East Stroudsburg High School in math. That definitely sparked my interest in tutoring from there, and it led to me actually tutoring at NCC for their students. I actually continued tutoring through my bachelor's degree on the weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays, to high school students as well. I also worked at Wilkes University as a teaching assistant in vibrations lab, fluid mechanics lab, mechatronics lab, and thermodynamics. This definitely aided in me beefing up my resume upon graduating. And there were internships that became available, but I kind of passed them along. I think more so my age and what I was going with in my life at that time. But those are all good things to look into as well. Finding a job in this field was another task of mine. I mean, each time you go through something, it's a life lesson. So my advice is to put as many applications as you can out there as possible. And eventually you'll get an interview. Remember that your resume speaks for you initially. So you got to make it look really good. And to get that interview, then you have to sell yourself, but more important, be yourself. So I had to go through three interviews to get the job that I had. Some companies want to make sure that you're a good fit for the environment and the team. So make sure everyone works well together. And yeah, that's basically what I have to say. I want to thank Jeremy and the rest of the engineering alumni for being here.
Thanks so much, Jeffrey. We really, really appreciate that. And, you know,
Yeah.
certainly some great advice there. And we appreciate you sharing your story. And, you know, thanks so much. And again, with each of our alums, Jeffrey, as well as the others, any questions that come up for any of you in the audience, feel free to just put them in the chat, and we'll see them as we go along, and we'll address them at the end. So we move right along next to Sergio. So Sergio, if you'd like to go ahead, we look forward to hearing from you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So yeah, so I am Sergio David Martinez. I graduated from NCC in 2016. So I'm a DACA student, and so this kind of informed my my career choice in the STEM field. I'm the first first to go to college, the first to finish college. After NAC, I went to Drexel University, and so just due to the limitations of my particular situation, NCC was the perfect home for me. You know, they opened their doors. They allowed me to enroll, and it presented an environment for me to thrive in. You know, every teacher that I had, I'm kind of blessed to say that they were very helpful, very knowledgeable, and they allowed me to kind of, as previously mentioned, just kind of stand out, have a great relationship, both academically, but also just feel like everybody in those classrooms was invested in my success. I would say that I will move on to Drexel to finish my chemical engineering career. And by far, one of my favorite things about my particular field is adding context to everything that's around us. Everything that we interact with on a daily basis came from somewhere, and so understanding the chemistry behind things, understanding how, even the smallest, molecules make a difference in the smallest conditions, shape a whole litany of products. It kind of just personified with me. So that was by far one of the reasons why I went into the chemical field. When one of the most challenging, I would say, is that we're dealing with some abstract, of course, academic courses, but also, it's the more challenging the things are, the more rewarding they are oftentimes. And I would say when it comes to advice in terms of being in the engineering field, which is where I got my associates in NAC, and then of course, more specifically, if you want to be in a chemical engineering field, I would say the best advice is to not only just go through the coursework, but try to find enjoyment in it. Engineering and STEM field in general, it provides job security, of course, good paying salaries. But it's often not enough to push you through those long nights of studying, through this, through the test, through just grueling, difficulties that come along with a complicated field of study. So, if you can't change the difficulty of something, you got to change your perspective on it, I would say. And once again, you kind of going back to a great point that was made before, group studies are everything. One of the greatest things about STEM, and particularly engineering as well, is the fact that we get to shine as individual engineers. We get to show how bright we are, but we also recognize in there that we can't do everything. It is literally teams of engineers that make the world go round, and you can't be an expert in everything. And it's amazing to see what other people are specialized in, and how you can mesh into this perfect mechanism that make teams work very well together and kind of perform at a level that no one individual could ever could. And once again, a little bit going to the next one of a little bit of a non-traditional path. Once again, as I mentioned, I'm a DACA student. And so one of the difficulties graduating from high school, senior year comes along and everybody's talking about college. A, I didn't know if I could go to college, and B, I didn't know if I could afford it, And so NAC presented a very affordable solution for one of those aspects. And like I said before, they were very welcoming. And on top of that, there was a misconception, I guess, or there's a bit of stigma about community college, but this is by far one of the best institutions that I've been a part of. I think it really prepared me in terms of the difficulty aspect, the intensity of it, and of course the care that the instructors presented. It really prepared me to go on to Drexel, which is another kind of high performance university where I was able to face those higher level challenges. And even though I went into chemical engineering, for the first year and a half or 2 years after graduating from Drexel, I was actually in business, in marketing and business development. The reason being is because during an internship, while at Drexel, one of the employer offered to pay for a portion of my education. So he got to say yes to that to that deal. And so, but it's never too late to go back, to where you want to be. And I wanted to be in solar. I learned the business acumen of creating new business relationships, and kind of getting myself a little bit out there in that aspect. But right now, I went back into the solar field as a project engineer. So now I get to apply those different sets of skills. Like I said before, you learn a little bit of everything, and then you bring it together to improve the team that you're currently a part of. And that's who I am.
Thanks so much, Sergio. That was awesome. We really appreciate you sharing all of that. So we'll move right along next to Serena. Serena, take it away.
Hey everyone, my name is Serena Yombe. I'm currently working as a mechanical engineer for a private consulting firm here in Philadelphia. I graduated from NAG in 2015, and from there I transferred to Jackson University. I majored in mechanical engineering, so that's my background. Well, a little bit about myself is that I'm originally from Cameroon, and I've been in the US for about like 7 to 8 years now. And NAG was literally my first, my first step in my journey as an engineer. When I first came, I remember I couldn't author any word in English. Even understanding what like you guys say would be like so difficult, and that really helped me. NCC really helped me transition to that journey. The professors were very helpful. I did take like ESL classes, and then after my first semester, it was just like ESL, English as a second language. I took calculus and everything. Because of my background from my country, I kind of like was most advanced compared with the courses that I took there compared to like most students here. So it was a breeze, but it definitely helped me with my journey transitioning to Drexel University, because like learning something in a different language can be like a little bit different. So while at Drexel, I think, like choosing mechanical engineering was because I really like to, combine the theoretical aspect with the practical aspect. It's something that, I really liked when I first chose mechanical engineering. So I was really curious. And mechanical engineering is a broad field. There's different industry, aerospace, medical, everything. So I kind of wanted to have like a touch base on every single industries. And I thought that, mechanical would be the best fit for me. So while going through, I was involved in a lot of, clubs. My favorite one is Society of Women Engineers. They really taught me about, like community-based, like women, but also, what it really means to be working as a team. And, what is it to be a woman in engineering? And for myself, a Black woman engineer. So I really like the club. It was really about leadership. I'm always, promoting women in engineering. But at Drexel, they had like the professors were always thoughtful. Like the courses is something that, I always gonna vouch for. Like, like you have to be able to communicate your interest to professor. If you have any issues, talk to them. And that'll be my best, the first advice is, when you encounter any issues or problems, professors, peers, TAs, will always be your best resources. For me, they were the best resources even now. I think the most interesting thing, that project that I worked on, it was my senior design project. So I entered a national competition hosted by NASA during my last year. And I think what I really liked about it kind of combined the technical and soft skills aspect, because the team, it was called the NASA Human Rover, and it basically required you to, beside building a human power rover, basically like a 4x wheeled, we had to create like an outreach event for 200 people. And obviously I thought that was really exciting because, I had to talk to a bunch of kids about like how cool it is to, to be an engineer and all the different cool things that you can do. It was really interesting because I was able to combine all my technical skills that I learned, throughout my college as a mechanical engineer and really build this product. We fundraise money for it. I learned how to market, something that I never did before, and collaborate with like 4 other engineers in the team and then present it on national level was huge for me, and I really enjoyed that. The second thing that my best advice, and even something that I keep doing now, is I learned that sometimes it's not always about what you know, but who you know. And like I learned that through, going to conferences. So while I was in the Swiss Society of Women Engineers, I had opportunity through Drexel, obviously, to go to different conferences. And you meet a lot of people. So most of them are engineers and professionals. And, like there's different people with different backgrounds. And sometimes, you might be talking to someone, like on the hallway, and that person can be, I don't know, the VP of let's say GM, General Motors, and you just had no idea. You only find out later, and that person now is in your network. And like that's huge, if that's your dream company. So like it's important to obviously have a great resume, build those skills, but also you should not forget that if like knowing someone can like actually kind of stand out compared to someone else who's just gonna apply, let's say, to another website like Indeed. I think that, so right now, I really enjoy what I'm doing. The kind of person I am is I like working in a team setting with people with different kind of background. And, like, I think that I got this from being at NCC, because, it was a community of different, people from different nationalities, different backgrounds. And, I think my best advice for anyone right now is to be, like really enjoy what you're doing, but also be open to learning more, finding more about yourself, getting those internships while you're still in school, figure out what you really want. Like I wouldn't say not to waste your time, but really just like, finding that passion. You have to be passionate about, what you're doing, and, finding that happiness. At least that's how I call it. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Serena. And Serena, as some of the other panelists so far, really highlighted a number of key things that we certainly work with students around and that we talk about within our Center for Career Development. So certainly around, for those of you looking for, internship opportunities as well as opportunities to network, certainly here you have an opportunity to network with some phenomenal alums from our institution, but these are, this and more are some of the things we can do and support you with here in our office. So certainly, as we'll be following up with you from the event, glad to have you here, and just wanted to put a little pitch out there for our career development office, because we really are here as a resource for a number of things that have been discussed. So moving right along, we'll go to Corey. So Corey, go right ahead.
Hi guys, my name is Corey Trumbauer. I graduated from NCC with degrees in physics and engineering in 2017. From NCC, I transferred to Lehigh. I graduated from Lehigh with a BS in electrical engineering in 2019. I currently work at a MEP firm called Snyder Hoffman Associates, which is located right in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Most people probably don't know what MEP is. I didn't until I applied there. It stands for mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and we essentially do those systems for large-scale construction projects. About 80% of what we do are schools and hospitals. We do pretty much all over the tri-state area. I have projects right now. I think my farthest away project right now is down in Chevy Chase, Maryland, which is like a suburb of Washington, D.C. I have a nursing home I'm doing. I have projects all over Pennsylvania, New Jersey, some up into New York. I did a barbecue restaurant in Texas a couple months ago. So we pretty much do projects everywhere. The rewarding parts of my job are, I like the fact that every job is different. Even within, even though 75, 80% of what we do is schools and hospitals, every school, every hospital is a little bit different. That's also might be the most challenging part of my job though, because some concepts carry over from job to job, but a lot of it is unique. A lot of it is coordinating with what the owner wants. Some people are very environmentally conscious. They want everything as green as possible. Some people just want everything as cheap as possible. Sometimes most of our jobs, we actually get hired by the architect. A lot of architects, some architects are easier to work with than others. I'll put it that way. So the fact that every job's a little bit different is both rewarding and challenging. Another part of my job I like is just from an ethical standpoint, I feel positive about what I do because we are essentially making buildings more efficient. So we're making everything more environmental friendly. And with the schools and some of the publicly funded jobs, we're also saving taxpayers money if we can cut a school district's electric bills in half every month. It's a substantial saving for taxpayers. Some of the current projects I'm doing, I have an elementary school in Parkland I'm doing. If anybody's from Easton, I'm doing a high rise in downtown Easton called the Commodore, which is like a 32 apartment / office / restaurant building. If anybody's familiar with Catasauqua, we're redoing their football field and field house at the moment. So as I said, every job we do is a little bit different. I really enjoy it. Advice I would have for people is just to stay flexible and stay open to change. When I got to NCC, I thought that I wanted to do civil. I had adjunct professors who were electrical engineers at PP&L and AT&T for my 2 physics classes at NCC. And over the course of those 2 courses, they kind of steered me towards electrical engineering. So just stay flexible. You might think you know what you want to do now. You think you know what school you want to transfer to now. There's a good chance it's not going to play out that way, and be open to it not playing out that way. Just kind of follow your path. If something feels right, then go for it. If it doesn't, even if it's something you planned on, then maybe reevaluate and back off of that. It took a very non-traditional path. I dropped out of high school when I was 16. I got my GED pretty quickly afterwards. I didn't take a course or anything. I just took the test and was fortunate enough to pass it. I spent the next 13 years working in restaurants, doing everything from I was the assistant kitchen manager at an Applebee's to I've been a sous chef at a high-end pub. I've pretty much done anything you can think of in the restaurant industry I've done. When I was 30, my kids started getting older. I realized I didn't want to spend the rest of my life working nights and weekends. I went back to school again, originally planning to pursue civil engineering. I had my Calc 1 professor at NAC actually steered me towards a program that I don't think exists anymore, but it was called Smart Scholars. But part of that was that I had to enroll full-time. So that's what made me go to full-time. And then, as I said, my physics professors kind of steered me towards electrical engineering. I didn't do any internships just because I was trying to get an engineering degree with a GED. There were some courses I had to make up. So I did summer courses all 3 years while I was in school at NCC and Lehigh. One thing I would tell a lot of people, some of the best instruction I got and the best professors I had, and again, I transferred to Lehigh, I did 77 credits at Lehigh. Some of the best professors I had my entire time in college were at Northampton. And the thing is, the professors at Northampton, their sole job is to teach you. They want you to succeed. They want you to pick up the material. I don't want to cast aspersions on anybody, but at a 4-year school, especially if it's a research school, you're going to get some professors who view themselves as researchers and the teaching part of their job as a burden. You don't deal with that at NCC. Everyone's there because they want to teach and they want you to learn the material. Take advantage of that. You really get some great instruction at NCC. Another thing I would advise everybody is to use the Learning Center. I actually developed a relationship with Mike Sparrow, who was the director of the Learning Center at the time. He helped me with applying to colleges. He took me on a personal tour of Lafayette, where he's an alum. He actually steered me away from taking a job that I thank him almost monthly for steering me away from taking it. And just take advantage of NCC. Some of the resources there are just as good as you're going to find at a 4-year college, in my experience, and take advantage of your time there. Be open to meeting new people. Like some of the other panelists said, be open to working with other people. Engineering is extremely difficult. If you try to do it all on your own without developing any study buddies or homework partners or anything like that, it's probably going to be even harder. So, develop friendships, try and develop relationships with professors and TAs as you go through, and just be open to adapting to change as it comes your way.
Thank you very much, Corey. We appreciate your insights there. We'll move right along next to Gabriella. Go ahead. take it away.
Good afternoon. Jeremy said, my name is Gabriela Guel. I am a transmission design engineer at PPL, and I basically design high voltage power lines. A little bit of my background is that I was born and raised in Costa Rica. And ever since my senior year of high school, I actually knew I wanted to become an engineer. When I was little, I would always have that questioning attitude, and I wanted to know how everything works and what a best way then to become an engineer. So right after I moved to this country, I went straight to Northampton and I got my associates in engineering. I will say my college experience was a little bit far from traditional, solely by the fact that I was still learning English while I was taking my engineering courses. And on top of that, I had to balance my work life with school because that was the only way I could afford going to school. So right after I got my associates, I transferred to Temple University and I got a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. To be honest, while I was getting my associates in engineering, I still wasn't sure exactly which engineering field to go for. So after talking to several of my professors, I tried to get a better sense of what each engineering field will allow me to do. And I got a better sense of what I would like to do in the future. So that's why I decided to go for mechanical engineering because it was more in line with my interest. So when I was in school, I had the opportunity to intern at Philadelphia Gas Works. And this is where I got experience in the utility industry. And that's how I got my current job at PPL. When I was first going for mechanical engineering, I would imagine myself working for like Tesla or something like that. And it wasn't until I got my internship that I found out I really liked the utility work. So if you ask me what's the number one advice that I will give to a current engineering student or a future one, is to really try to find internships early while in school. So this way you can get a better sense of what you like and what you don't like about engineering, and also to find what your interests are for your future job. So for example, I waited until I was a rising senior at Temple to find my internship, and thankfully it was something that I actually liked. And after many interviews, I ended up getting my job at PPL. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. We'll move right along next to David.
Sure, thanks. All right, so my name's David. Hi. I'm also a high school dropout. I eventually found my way to Northampton Community College. Too long didn't read. I've always been a D student, mainly because I filled my time with my interests, even if they were dumb. For me at Northampton, everything really clicked when I took Chem 1 with Professor Magilton. I was held back so much in high school that I never really got to take chemistry, and he made it like super awesome. Same with Karen Klein for biology and ecology, and Karen McClintock-Walsh for lit. I don't know if any of those are still there, but they were the shit when I was there. When I was done taking literally every class that they taught, I was like, well, now I have almost an associate's degree in biology. And so I just finished that up and applied to a 4-year school for chemical engineering. I didn't really plan on doing that. It just kind of evolved that way. They had really interesting courses, and I just took all of them because they were interesting people and they pushed me really hard. I got rejections from all 12 of the schools that I applied to, except for Drexel. So I just ended up going there. I didn't get any financial aid. I didn't have any, help from friends, family. I just packed on the student loans, and that was a really dumb decision later, but it's okay. Sometimes you take the best package that you get, and that's what I had. Eventually, I joined a student-run group making a Hyperloop pod for SpaceX. That was at Drexel. And I also ended up joining a solar cell lab, spin coating solar cells through one of the professors that I became friends with at Drexel. And also, like Drexel was really like, it was really hard in terms of like the 10-week term versus the 16-week term. A lot of times you would end up, doing interviews during finals week, plus all the other shit that you got going on. And sometimes that sucks. But, you can be hella busy and, coffee will get you through that kind of stuff. You just crank through it, right? Through Drexel, I took an internship at GSK. It's a top 10 pharma company. And then later I got one also through Drexel at Bloomberg. They have a really nice co-op internship program where taking an internship is part of your degree. So I wish they paid me for saying that, but it actually did do a lot for me. When I was in Northampton, I didn't take any internships. I either didn't know that it existed because I was still trying to figure out, just life in general. But if they offer them, awesome, jump on that if you have the time. Let's see, what else? Oh, at some point I started, a friend of mine and I started a deep learning research firm. It ended up growing into a 30-ish person company in Center City, Philadelphia. It's still running today. That's while I was in school. I was just interested in deep learning, and I found a lot of people through these internships, created these like professional relationships. And I realized, hey, these people needed some stuff, and I know how to do these things, and me and my friends know how to do these things. Let's, put 2 and 2 together. Eventually, some of those internships, they turned into full-time positions while I was at school too. So I was doing my own company, I was doing full-time school, and I was working full-time at one of these companies. After some time, I decided to leave school in my senior year. So I was studying chemical engineering there, but I decided to put that on pause because chemical engineering was like a passion degree for me, and there was opportunities opening up in the data science space for me. So I took a full-time position as a data scientist, a senior data scientist at LexisNexis, which is a top 10 legal company, or a company in the legal space, legal technology space. After almost 2 years of that, Disney gave me a call and asked if I would be interested in a position that they had as a lead data scientist. I gave them a YOLO number and they said yes. Drexel prepares you really well for interviewing. By the time I left there, I had probably taken over 300 some interviews, which really, 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 that's its own skill. And that's a really important skill. And sometimes just being good at that helps. And I guess now I'm here, right? So currently I manage a team of data scientists at Disney. We research and build consumer-facing state-of-the-art deep learning on a petabyte scale, both on edge and in the cloud. My role at Disney, it bridges a couple different organizations, including parks and platforms, emerging technologies, Imagineering, and Disney research. I guess too long didn't read. I make magic at Disney. It's pretty cool. If you go to any park worldwide, you'll use something that me or my team has built. So that's really interesting to me. I like building things. I like making it so people can use them. I've always kind of been a side gig person, so that's definitely helped me for sure. So I often have a bunch of things going on, and I'd be happy to talk about any of those if you're interested too. Company or other things. I was like flipping cars at one point too, because I saw it on YouTube and it was like, oh my God, you'll make $1 billion, and it doesn't work out. But anyways, I guess in terms of advice, be your own motivation. Don't wait for somebody or something to motivate you. Don't let potential go on your gravestone kind of thing. I often interview candidates for both Disney and in the past for many other companies that I've been at for data science positions and for engineering positions. And the biggest thing that I look for when hiring for any role is that a candidate does their own work, that they're interested in what they do and that they play with those interests. And keyword on play. I always hire people that build shit in general and that they build that stuff themselves. In my experience, I guess the things that you build talk way more than the degrees or opportunities that you have. I think you can always find things to build to push you a lot harder than a senior project. I don't know, go on Udemy, hit up conferences, sneak into them if you have to. I totally did that a couple times, and just fill in the gaps from your classes and just build something that people use, and companies just eat that up. They really do. So yeah, I guess it's a really long or actually kind of short TLDR version of my last 8 years. 5 minutes is kind of hard to give you like an in-depth picture of all of those things. But I hope that helps spark some questions during the Q&A.
Thank you so much, David. We really appreciate that. And I, you know, as some of you in the audience may have been able to tell by now, when I was in touch with the panelists at Advanced Week, one of the prompts was related to kind of discussing their paths and if it was a little bit non-traditional and non-linear to discuss that. And that can come out in different ways, right? We've heard of different people's paths educationally, and then also about David's path professionally being perhaps not what a lot of college freshmen or sophomores or certainly high school students would imagine. And so really kind of really thinking about following your passion, and as David likes to say, both here and it's all over his LinkedIn profile as well, finding things that you like to do and play with, really, and really focusing on those interests and passions, and side gigs turning into. I mean, David, while he was at Drexel, started 2 companies, which I just found, which on top of all the other things that he was working on. So thank you so much for sharing that. And while, you know, as each of the panelists have only had a few minutes with you, and we'll move on to Tony in just a second. Certainly you can ask them, you know, questions now, but as well, I think our panelists will also be open to, if any of you do want to have a career chat with them, to talk with them a little bit more in depth. I think they'll be quite open to that as well. So, you know, I have all of their information, and certainly in addition to sharing this recording, we can be in touch if any of you in the audience do want to talk a little bit more in depth, you know, at the end or afterwards, we can arrange that. So thanks so much. And we'll move right along to Tony now. Tony, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me? Very good. My name is Tony Cuvo, and I'm honored to participate. I have to tell everybody this, that when Jeremy and I first spoke about this, he said he was excited to have a quote, old guy being part of the panel.
I didn't say really old guy, I said experience.
Well, okay. But I attended NACAC and got an engineering degree back in the mid to late 80s. So that's quite a while ago. I took that 2-year degree, and I was able to get myself a job at Ingersoll Rand at the time. And I was interested in going further with my education, but I wasn't blessed with a lot of economic or financial backing. So I let Ingersoll pay me to go to Lafayette and get a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. And then later on, another company that I worked for, called a smaller company called Conmec, paid for me to go to Lehigh and complete a master's degree in mechanical engineering. So it was very nice to not have to, spend so much money to get an education. The drawback was that it was all part-time while I worked full-time. So it took me roughly 10 years to get my education. So, but looking back on it, you know, as far as having an opportunity to get all that experience working full-time while pursuing degrees and working part-time, anybody would come to me and say, you know, what's the best way to get an education? I would definitely say that that's certainly a great alternative if you're looking to get experience while you're getting your education, and would like to have your prospective employer pay for your education. So at Victaulic, I am my official title is Senior Project Engineer. What that means is I develop new products for them and they have a vast array of products. They are in the piping industry, so they make gasketed couplings that join pipe ends together. They make fittings, they make valves, they make all the tools that go along with it. There is never a shortage of interesting work to do at Victaulic. As a senior project engineer, though, I will be involved with ideating new products for for several markets, whether it be just regular plumbing or it be fire protection. And I will develop products from ideation stage all the way through until they're commercialized and they actually go out to get sold. The majority of my experience, not only at Victaulic, but prior to that, has been in the, let's just say, the metals world. In the last 5 to 6 years, I've actually been involved with plastic pipes, and it's been a brand new experience for me. Getting to learn more about plastics. I had never done it in my career before, but it was something that I was very interested in. They were, Victaulic was looking to develop a line of products for plastics like polyethylene, polypropylene, CPVC, all these joining methods for all of these different types of plastic pipes. I knew nothing about them, but I educated myself on them, and I worked with other people at Victaulic. And today we have a full suite of products that we offer to customers for plastic pipes. And really, it's smart on Victaulic's part, and they knew this was coming, that the transition from metal pipes, while there's still a lot out there that's being used, but the transition over to plastic pipes is really, you know, getting a lot of momentum behind it. So they were really ahead of the, you know, fortunate for them, they were ahead of the game. They said, okay, we're going to make a line of products that joins these products together, these plastic pipes together, and that's what I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years. And I've really enjoyed it. As far as something I want to mention about, you know, like one of my favorite things that I did during my engineering career, there's been many of them, and there's too many to talk about. Just within the last 20 years that I've been at Victaulic, there's many, but I want to go back to Conmec. Conmec was, at that time, I was in rotating machinery business. I was a steam turbine designer for Conmec. Conmec was a small company, and when you're in a small company, even though you're an engineer, but you may be asked to do many different types of things in a small company because there are just too few heads to do everything. So I had this opportunity to completely redesign this particular steam turbine. And the reason why it fascinates me, and I tell a lot of people about this. I happened to be in Trinidad one time. I was working on a project down there. We were doing a major overhaul of an ammonia plant in Trinidad, and I happened to see this same particular steam turbine at this plant and operating in a particular way. A year later, somebody came and they said they had the same steam turbine, but it was performing differently. It was built differently and performing differently. They wanted to change the steam turbine so that it could, operate at higher speed, put out more power. And I actually helped sell that job because of the fact that I had seen the one in Trinidad doing almost that same exact surface. So I helped Conmec sell that job because I said, look, this steam turbine can do it. So once they sold that job, then I got to redesign all of the internal components. I mean, a complete gut job. Everything came out. The only thing that was left was the casing. I designed a new rotor. I designed new diaphragms, new nozzle block, and everything. So that in and of itself was really cool. Then the steam turbine came into Conmec's shop to be overhauled. Well, I remember getting a call one particular Saturday morning, and they said, hey, why don't you come out? Why don't you come down and help take this thing apart and put it back together? That was the coolest experience I ever had, actually putting my hands on the steam turbine, helping to rip it apart, get rid of all the old parts, take the new parts that I had designed and put them actually back into the steam turbine. That was probably the coolest thing one of the coolest things I ever remember doing. And then we had a sister company that we actually took the steam turbine to, and we did testing. So I remember going out there and being involved in the testing of that turbine to make sure that it met performance before it actually went to the customer and was installed. So any engineer who can get involved in a project like that, where they actually are involved on the upfront end to help sell the product, they do the design work. They actually get their hands dirty, taking the parts, taking everything apart, putting it back together, involved in the testing and in the installation. That is, at least in my own opinion, that's really what every engineer should be wishing for. That's the kind of involvement they want to have that's the kind of intimacy they want to have with their projects. So as far as any advice that I would give to anybody who's looking to get into the engineering field, just one reminder: we're all working for companies who want to make money. Engineers, we are inquisitive. We want to understand everything that we work on to the nth degree. And if we had the opportunity, we would work on something for years if we had the ability to be able to understand everything. But as I'm sure many of my colleagues on the panel already know, that unfortunately we want to get a paycheck. Therefore, we want our companies to make money, have products to sell. So therefore, at some point, management's going to come to us and say, okay, look, you guys, here, you got to put a time limit on the amount of time you're spending on developing this product so that we can actually get it out there and actually sell it to customers and make money. So that's one of the things you're going to have to balance, quite a bit. I know we want to, as I said, we want to spend as much time as we possibly can on it, but the company that you work for, is going to have to cut it off at some point and say, okay, look, when is the design as best as you can make it? When are you satisfied with it? Sometimes that the answer to that is never, but at some point it's going to have to become a sellable product so that your company can make money. So that's about all I have to say.
Thanks so much, Tony, for sharing your perspective there and some of the highlights from Tony's had a really phenomenal career filled with a lot of innovation and exciting projects. So we really appreciate you sharing that with your perspective today. So that wraps up this part of our program. We're going to move now into our Q&A. Thank you so much to each of our 7 panelists for sharing your valuable insights and perspectives with all of us here today and with those who are going to be watching the recording moving forward. So I'll pass things along to Evan. I know Evan's been taking some notes about the questions that have come up in the chat box. And thanks, I know that Tony and Corey have also been addressing some of the questions in the chat box. So I'll pass along to Evan to those questions as well as any other questions that he has on his own. And after he gets through a couple of those, if anyone also wants to just unmute themselves and speak from their mic, that can go as well. Also, Zachary Cruz from our admissions office, for those of you who are prospective students, he'll be stepping out shortly. He's going to drop his information in the chat as well, and we'll pass that along in the email to those of you who are in attendance and who are RSVP'd as well. So thanks so much for that, Zach. And Evan, over to you.
Hey. As Jeremy said, I have been taking notes. I did notice that, like he said, Corey and Tony have been answering the questions, but there were a few that were directed specifically at a few of you.
Plus, as I was looking at these, plus we also know that some of you may want to address some of them as well, provide your own spin as well. So back to you.
Just making sure everybody can hear me. Okay. So the first question that was mentioned by Ashley was directed at Jeffrey. It was, did you struggle with calculus, and what books, information, and tools helped you learn calculus to the point you were comfortable to tutor other students?
That's a great question. I think everyone can attest that each part of calculus, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, had its own difficulties. What drove me actually to get into engineering was I just enjoyed math. I just had a knack for it. So when you apply yourself and you really understand what calculus actually does, it has a bigger spectrum than just doing math. Calculus is a struggle. It's not for everyone. Math, I would say, is not for everyone, but it's something that with studying and, like I said, with groups and stuff like that, you can definitely get through it. Groups will help you a lot. Pick a problem in the calc book and then just go from there, and then kind of test your limits on your classmates as well. And to what point were you comfortable to tutor the other students? So I had 2 high school students that followed me all the way from algebra 1, 2, and geometry to 2 calculus 1 and 2. And it was a little bit since I've taken calculus when I started tutoring them. But definitely throughout my college degree, we constantly used calculus in some way, shape, or form. So it's always still there. I think if you were asking me now to do some calculus, I would struggle a bit, but it would just kind of take me a little bit to maybe open up a book and get a refresher. But your confidence level needs to be high, and you need to know that you need to know what it is that you're doing. If you don't understand what you're doing, there's no way you can teach it. So do yourself a favor and really understand what calculus is, what the answer means, and then you'll have a way better chance of being able to teach others. Also, just a quick thing with your teammates and your schoolmates and stuff like that, when you're going in your group studies, you're also teaching them as well as you're teaching yourself. So I take great pride in, if I get an answer and some of the classmates, oh, I got this answer, how do you know yours is right or incorrect, or who's right or who's wrong? That's where you start to really, really learn and understand things. So I hope I answered the question. I do have a question for David. David, can you give me tickets for Disney? That's what I want to know.
I can neither confirm nor deny the validity of that question.
All right.
Let me ask.
I figured I would ask.
It is warm down here. I'll say that. It's like 90s out today. So
I am planning a vacation soon.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, I had to throw that out there.
I had a professor ask me that once. Like, I was like, okay, for real? Like, I was like, all right. Sure.
Awesome. Evan, want to go with the next question there?
Sure. It was a question for all. I know a few have already responded. It was, how was the transfer process for you? And what challenges did you face while starting at the new college? And did you graduate within the following 2 years, or did it take a little bit longer?
Yeah, I can answer that a little bit. I mean, it was relatively straightforward for me to go from Northampton to Drexel. Again, I kind of like haphazardly got a bachelor's or I'm sorry, associates in biology. So like I was missing a lot of courses, like my maths and stuff were all behind. So just make sure that you're on like kind of the track for where you want to transfer to, or else like that can end up, setting you back a little bit. I didn't graduate my bachelor's yet. So I can't speak on that, but I definitely know that I could have probably done it in 2.5 years at Drexel if I went like through the whole path. Some things that were a little bit difficult were my more obscure classes that I took at Northampton. Like, I mean, I took like a philosophy on death and dying or something like that. And like, if you're trying to transfer that to chemical engineering, like, I don't know if half your courses are lit courses. It doesn't, like British literature, I don't know, right? So that's at least my experience.
Yeah, I can jump into David on that. As the transfer process from NCC to, I know, Wilkes, it was just a different atmosphere. It's definitely intimidating to go from, the community college to a university. It seems like really big and overwhelming and kind of nervous. And even for an older gentleman like myself going there, that's a whole separate thing. I mean, I'm 30 years old and in school with 20-year-olds, but it takes a little bit of time to find your comfort zone. And I think when you're in it, it makes the transition a little bit better. I think myself, and what I mentioned before in my opening statement, or it might have been my closing statement, that, get to know your professors on a one-to-one basis. Let them make sure they remember your name. So if they see you in the hallway, they can say, hey, Jeff, hey, how are you? And not just kind of another student. That will help the transition as well. And it took me, I believe, 2.5 years to do my associate's degree at NCC and my 2.5 years at Wilkes as well. I didn't pass every class when I went through the first time, so I had to retake a few. But never give up. That's the main thing.
One other thing I would add, and I did respond to this in chat, but one other thing I would add is just be aware of most universities have kind of quirky stuff with transfer students. Be aware of the policies and rules they have. Like, for instance, I don't know if it's still this way. When I transferred to Lehigh, they would only take calculus classes from NCC if you did the entire calculus series at NCC.
Well, Lehigh also now has a little form you got to fill out from NCC.
Okay. Yeah. So each school, in my experience, all the schools, I mean, I only applied to 4 when I transferred, but all of them had different criteria and different things they wanted to see for transferring. So just be proactive about that. I don't know if Michelle Palmisano is still at NCC. If she is, she's a phenomenal resource for transfer.
Oh, good. Same for me.
Thank you for your answer to that. And I wanted, in recognition of everyone's time, as you saw that I wrote in the chat, we'll stay on here a bit past 5, but we will be wrapping up soon after a couple more questions. So I want to thank everyone so much for coming, and for those audience members, if you do have to step off, we understand, and we'll send you the entire recording to you. And likewise with any panelists, while you knew that if you go a little bit beyond 5, I understand that everyone does have various commitments in the evening. So anyone has to jump off now, we totally understand and respect that. I think we'll take, maybe 2 or 3 more questions, and I'll leave that at Evan's discretion. Evan, if you want to bring up one of your own questions, you're welcome to, and or some of the others that have come in from Ashley or Adam or some of the other folks in the audience. So I'll leave it there. Go ahead. Back to you, Evan.
I'm going to leave my questions to myself for now, because most of them have been answered already, just listening. Now, a big one that I think a lot of people would be asking, but was specifically asked by Dr. Valera, was looking back at your courses you took in college, is there any topic that you considered should have paid more attention to or covered more to prepare you better for your job?
Can you rephrase the question, or if you repeat it?
2 cents on that.
So looking back over your time at college, what do you feel should have been something you should have paid more attention to or should have been better covered by the college for your job?
Gotcha. Yeah, so I think that if I would have gone back, I would definitely have taken some courses in finances, because everybody, or at least in personal financing, because you're kind of, I went from living in Easton, which is a smaller town, living in Philly. While it's important to the coursework and everything, we still have the personal lives outside of everything, and the easier that your personal life is outside of school, the better you can focus. That way you only have one job, which is being a student. So I think I would have taken some financial management, particularly with Drexel. We have a paid co-ops program, and so you give a guy who just worked in restaurant industries here and there on the weekends, you give him a paid co-op in a big city. It definitely could have gone better. But yeah, that's
second.
I just want to answer Ashley's question. To be honest, there is no balance between life and work. There is the integration. So as you basically study, learn, you have a job and you have a family, you just learn how to integrate them. So there's no balance. Whomever tells you there's a balance, honestly, one is basically taking the hit on the other one. So it's more of how can you manage and integrate both of them. Thank you.
Excellent point, Shalera. Thank you for sharing that. Evan, do you want to wrap things up with one more question from the group if there's anything that hasn't been addressed yet? And certainly, once again, we will share the recording with everyone. And if anyone wants to connect further with us or with any of our panelists, we can arrange for that as well. Evan?
Looking into the last two questions I had was, well, they're completely different, but since we're all living in the times of the pandemic, and the person specifically talking about online classes, including labs, do you think that will keep them back from going more into the major because everything's online? So essentially, do you feel having everything online would be more of a hindrance than if we were in person on campus?
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I got it. I'm jumping on it. Right. Okay. So back to the kind of statement that or like my motif about just building things, right? I think it actually gives you more of an opportunity depending on on how you approach it, right? If everyone's working from home and everyone's taking labs at home, then like it's so easy to like put yourself eons above like everyone else on a resume or something like that by saying, hey, we were all working from home, but I took initiative. I filled in some gaps on some Udemy courses or something. And like, I made my own makeshift, really shitty chemistry lab in my parents' basement or something. I've totally done that before. Like the amount of times that I've almost blown up their garage is like unspeakable, but like you can definitely make it work for you, and you can make it scream really well for you on your resume if everyone's working from home, and you take the initiative to do something good with that. I really think that I would totally hire somebody that did that straight up.
Yeah, I want to go off of that. I mean, it's a really good question because from here on out, it labeled every company that was able to make this transition from working remotely. And now companies realize that they're capable of doing it. So we're in like a new stage of working in a way. I've been working remotely ever since the pandemic happened back in March. So, and most of my colleagues have been doing the same. So to say that it would hinder your learning skills, it may or may not. Like David kind of said, kind of embrace it. You kind of have to. So work with it and definitely learn from it. But it won't hold you back. I think if anything, it's going to be a benefit.
Yeah. And one thing to tack on from that too, that I forgot to mention, because I forgot that this is like a lot of you are non-software engineers, but like I've been a software engineer at large companies for the past 5+ years. I've been working remote this entire time. So like before the pandemic, for the last 4 years before that, I've been working remote also. So it's never hindered anything that I've done outside of the pandemic. And if anything, it's strengthened my teams during the pandemic. So.
Yeah, I just want to ask something quick, if you're able to hear me, okay? So I was one of those people who was really new at my job. I mean, it was my first job out of school, and I was in that weird transition from working at the office, and then out of nowhere, everything was virtual. So at least in my experience, for me, the transition from working in the office to working from home was hard, and it took me a while to adjust. So the fact that you're doing it now while in school, it will definitely give you all the skills you need to do your job if you have work virtually.
Thank you. I think that's an important point about adaptability and resilience. Thank you for bringing that up there. So I think while there, I love seeing all the great questions rolling in from members of our audience. I think out of respect to everyone's time, we're gonna pause and wrap things up there. But thanks so much once again to each and every one of our panelists for all that you've shared, into our audience for joining us today and for your engagement, to our current students, to our local high school students, as well as to our colleagues from the Center for Career Development and the Learning Center, as well as faculty who have joined us. Thank you so much. And once again, we'll have the recording will be up on our YouTube channel pretty soon, and we'll be sharing it out with those who RSVP'd. And thank you so much, and have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.